to me, it's the best young adult coming of age series out right now. Like,
Hands
I just
down.
really think so. The others are not on that level. And I mean, that little guy, we can have mid-tier teen shows, but like Heartstopper just really gives you what you want from a YA coming of age drama that is also educational as far as like emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I don't know how they balance this and pull it off so well because, like you said, it is educational in the sense that everything that happens is so important, that what's written is so important, but it doesn't come off like Sunday school special, like we're here to teach. It doesn't feel preachy. It
Mhm.
just feels honest and real in a way that I don't think has been presented in coming of age stories, at least not in the last few years. Where the best way that I can explain it is just no matter who you are, you can find a place to be seen. And I think that's why it hits for so many people is like, and it hit isn't even it, like it just pummels you. It like tackles you with just like emotion and happiness, maybe even some bitter sweetness in there, just because any of the all of the characters, there's an entryway for somebody to feel seen in a way that they probably hadn't been seen before in a teen show.
So earnest and, like you said, honest and endearing. And I think that's the important thing because, yeah, it's a lovely show and it's a really lighthearted and fun show, but it's also so important in what it does. And I think the whole lighthearted element of it is what makes it like that. It's such a positive inspiration and beacon of hope for a lot of people, a lot of young people, a lot of young queer people at the moment. And I think you see online so many people saying that they never had shows like that growing up. And I think that's why this stands apart as something. So the story is so simple in the best kind of way, but it's real and it's endearing. We in our line of work, we pick a lot of TV shows up and put them down and have to quickly move on to the next one and the next one. And it's been like 2 weeks since I've watched this, and it's stayed at the forefront of my mind since then. Um, and I remember the exact same thing happened with season one, and when we were all raving about it in our season one review. And I just love the fact that a year on, a season on, 8 more episodes on it, we can still say all the exact same things we said last season, but take it to the next level. It's rare that you get a show that's every bit as good, if not better, in its second season. And this nailed that. It's just it's beautiful. It's a lovely TV show. I'm used to British teen dramas. There's a lot of them on in the UK, but like never has one been so enthusiastic and endearing as this. And I think that's what sets it apart from all the rest, not just in the UK, but in the rest of the world. And we need more programs like that.
And we need like middle of growing up shows. Like, because they are very, I'm a big champion of teen content that skews a little younger. Because like the babies need it. Like they need content. Like for me, Heartstopper is, at least if I'm talking just about Netflix shows, it's like there with people who might be have aged out a little of the Babysitters Club
Mm-hmm.
or did enjoy Julie and the Phantoms. Like it's just a road to being able to see kids like yourself or like kids like and get the lessons you need to learn without it being like, and I'm just only saying this because I love Degrassi, but it was very public service announcement, like drama, 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 drama all the
Gotta tackle
time.
the issues.
Yes. And like Heartstopper does tackle the issues, but it does so in a way that feels very safe, very familiar. Like we're not going to spoil what happens in the season, but I feel like we can talk about some plot elements. Like for instance, Charlie has his first boyfriend and he is not doing his coursework. Like that is relatable for a lot of kids. It's their first outing into dating. They're deeply in like with the person that they who likes them back. They don't really want to concentrate on their schoolwork because at this point their schoolwork is boring. Like why would I do that when I could go run out in the park with Nick, with my dog, like with his dog? Why would I do that when we could like hang out together, listen to music and on the opposite side of that, this is Nick's, I'm assuming his first relationship or his first serious relationship, and he's getting his schoolwork done. That's also relatable. Like, it's just, there's just something about this show where all the characters are going through something a little bit different, but it's age appropriate. And it very much lives in the pocket of like stakes. The stakes are high for them, even if it's low stakes as a whole series. And I think that's good. I think we need content where it's low stakes but important, and it's about, you know, being able to come into your own and being able to discover who you are and express that and be able to share that and be able to communicate it, and also recognizing that it can be scary, and that you need support. This whole show is supportive.
I love that it's character driven
Mm-hmm.
in that vein. It's not driven by plot. And I know this is one thing that we talked about in the season 2 finale, that one of the last shots we were like, oh no, is something bad gonna happen? Is something like gonna happen? And that was like our usual teen drama brain, or like the brain that watches too much TV, too many like, we got to get the sweeps week like headline in there. But quickly I was like, this is not that show. It has never been that show. They're not going to take the quick like, oh, something bad's going to happen to this character just for the sake of plot. And that's something I really respect, that it's such a simple show, and sometimes simple can have a negative connotation. If you call somebody simple, it means they're not smart or something. But I think simplicity can be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really in the details of what Alice writes in the show with these characters. There's so much care taken with each of them and each of the pairings. Even in season 2, we got to see like you were saying, like season 2 is better than the first, and that's not to put down the first season. It's just the way that it expanded on what worked, expanded the universe. It just felt, I don't know, it was the way that I've never seen the second season really say what sophomore slump. Like, we're staying true to ourselves and we're going to build upon it. Like, we saw so many other perspectives, like Isaac and the teachers. Like, we get a perspective of somebody who's older, who's reflecting on their experience as a queer person coming out later in life. Like, I don't think that's a story that gets told either, because there are so many older people, including us and older people, watching the show and feeling something about it, because for a lot of us it's fantasy. Like, I know in my experience, I was a Charlie, I didn't have a Nick in high school. So being able to watch this, there's like a sense of mourning and experience that I didn't have, but also feeling this, I can relate to Mr. Farouk, who's watching these boys run around this hotel and being blissful and happy, but feeling like resentful, but then realizing that like every not even just queer people, everybody's on their own journey. No timing is correct. And I think that's one of the biggest messages that I got from season 2. Each character is on their own journey of like coming into their own. Like, it's not just Nick grappling with coming out, it's each person trying to figure out the timing and realizing like, oh, one thing's not better than the other. And the subtlety that Alice wrote that in the season, like, in awe. Like, they're not hitting us over the head with it at all. It's just like subliminal, and you can pick up on it. And I think that's another reason why 5 to 50 the show will hit. Like, you'll find something, it'll make you feel, full stop. It'll make you feel anything. And it's necessary, especially constantly saying it in this world. Like, you just need an entry, even when it gets a little bit darker and it touches on those realities, those hard truths. It's done so in a way where the characters have room to express those feelings. And I keep bringing up this book that I'm reading about teen dramas, and I'm sure Sabrina and Michael are tired of me, even though you guys said you weren't. But I'm in the middle of the Dawson's Creek chapter, and do you guys remember that headline I shared with you where someone said, a teen show I will not name is the best teen drama since Dawson's Creek? Not going to get into that discourse, but I will say I think there is a Venn diagram between Heartstopper and Dawson's Creek, in the sense that in this book, Kevin Williamson, who created Dawson's Creek, said that his vision for Dawson's Creek was to create a show about teenagers who could articulate themselves in the way they wish they could. Because like when you're a teenager, you have big feelings, but you can't always like communicate those in a way that you want to. Like you just feel things, but you don't have the language to express it. So in that show, these kids talk with heightened language. They have SAT vocabulary. They're very emotionally intelligent, even when they're not. Like they can express themselves. And I think the show does the same thing. It's like same but different. Like these characters are so honest and open, even when they're not. Like they get to a place where they can communicate in a way that I think teenagers should. And I think that's beautiful too. Like there's space for that kind of vision that's not like, I don't know how many people could relate to Dawson's Creek in like in the sense of like the language that they used. It was very like, I think it was just heightened. But when you watch this, it's like so similar, but not, I don't want to say like watered down or anyway. It's just so realistic, even more so than any other like uh teen drama that was free of any genre elements. Like I'm rambling, but I had to get all that out.
You hit so many nails on so many heads there. Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. I feel like this show, it takes the best. British drama is used to telling realistic stories, but a lot of them can be traumatic or disheartening. I think this has taken the best of that and the best of what we love about teen dramas and created the perfect blend of such an uplifting story of what life should be like for young people in love, irrespective of who they love. And I feel like what you mentioned is so on point. There's not an awful lot of movement on the show. Like we even look at season 2 taking place a day after season 1. There's not an awful lot of movement, but there's so much emotional movement. Yeah, I believe it's the next day. I believe, yeah. Um, uh, which I mean, if you've been watching your Nancy Drew conversations, that can be frustrating when they pack too much into it. What I love about Heartstopper is that it never feels like there's too much packed into it. And I say that after a season that managed to expand on the story, expand on the cast, and make it more of an ensemble piece. It just feels like everything that happens is so important to the characters. They feel it, and thus we feel it. It's a character-driven story, like Reed said. In that, yeah, of course, the biggest thing that happened this season was that they went to Paris, and compared to season 1, that's kind of huge. But generally, the stakes, like Sabrina said, are lower, but they're so much higher to the characters because it's a more realistic story. It's a more relatable story, and because it's happening to them and we care about them, we care about the story. And we, as you both said, we can feel something from it. We can look back on it as older people and see what it meant to us back then, what it could have been to us, but at the same time, what it could have been to so many people. It's so accessible for people of all ages that anybody can take something from it. And I think that's what's so important. We love these characters and we love these stories, and seeing a little slice of their life in just 8 episodes, it never gets old. I'm even more excited for season 3 now than I was for season 2 after season 1 dropped. Uh, it's just such an, no pun intended, heartfelt show. Yeah, I couldn't love it more.
They take, just like Dawson's Creek, they take adolescent emotions seriously, where you feel the gravity and the weight of just saying I love you to somebody. Like that's the biggest, like that's the, Serena said we're not going to spoil. I'm not listening. That was the big cliffhanger is like the decision to say those 3 words. Like that is huge. And I feel like that used to be in TV of yesteryear, like saying I love you. Like that was like a big moment in shows. And in these days, like we expect a little bit more from plots, but it's crazy that they successfully made the weight of saying I love you like it feels like a life or death thing, because it does when you're young. It does.
They've also done a great job of explaining that communication is hard, regardless of what you're talking about. Like, how do you, even if it's like not a necessarily an emotional thing, like something terrible happened and I'm trying to address it with you, it's just like how do I form the words to tell you what's going on with me? Or like, especially when I feel like it's burdensome, or I don't want to put more on your plate because I know you're going through a lot. Like, I feel like the way Heartstopper does it, like it is how teens would do it, but it's also like if you are an adult who has struggles with emotional connection or communicating properly, it's also kind of like a roadmap and a guide for you too. Like if you're watching it as an older person, like, dang, do I do that? Am I over here in the corner not saying anything, or I'm telling you I'm fine when I'm not fine, or am I only giving you like a little sprinkling of what's going on in my life? It helps to be like, yeah, everyone's doing that. Like these kids are doing it too, and these kids are struggling to tell each other what's going on home in their life or why they're not doing well in some area of it. Even if it's not, what I liked was the whole season isn't about coming out. It's about like it is about that specifically for Nick, but it's also about his comfort and his and being able to do it on his time while also recognizing that it's important to Charlie, even if Charlie doesn't says you can take your time. Charlie's saying exactly what he needs to say, but Nick is also reacting to that in the way that he needs to react. Like considering what happened in Charlie's previous situation with Ben, who we shall not speak on. Well, I shall not speak on Ben. Good luck to Ben in his other endeavors. But like, but it's like being able to recognize some in the group, like Isaac's story is about figuring out where he lands on a spectrum, recognizing, like being able to feel that out and test it. Like, oh, what's his name? Taos is being like asking out his friend. Like, how she's my best friend. I don't want to mess it up. And then Ella's all about what, like, yes, the Tao situation, but what she wants to do with her life. And what
and
then, like,
allowing herself to be the main character, I
yes,
think, of her own life.
And allowing herself to have a life outside of her friend group, who she loves immensely, but who she looks to be growing past just because she has different interests in them and wants to focus in a different way. So there's just so much going on in this friend group that like anyone can connect to, whether it's struggling with the potential loss of a friend, not by death, just by moving, the struggling with sharing your relationship or being honest about your home life, or in Imogene's case, recognizing that you just like a boy because he likes you or you think he likes you. Like that's also a thing. I love that moment when they're asking her about her relationship, and I don't remember who, but is it Elle? She's like, "Do you even like him?"
Yeah.
And like, and that is not only teen, that does happen with adults too, where you're looking at your friend like, all I'm hearing is negativity. I'm not seeing how this benefits you. Do you like this person? Or do you like being in a relationship? Because those are two different things.
And I think that's why the show works so well, because like y'all just said, it's the teenage experience through so many different eyes, so many different perspectives. Not a single thing happens in the show that you're like, that's unfeasible or that's unrealistic. All of these people are really feeling that, and you feel the weight of it on their shoulders. A lot of shows would get bogged down in the overly dramatic stakes going on that it would rush through stuff like this. Even with just 8 episodes, the show manages to take its time and make you feel all of that. And Nick's storyline is a perfect example of that, because he's constantly told that he doesn't owe people that information about himself, and yet it doesn't change the fact that he feels the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he struggles to say those words. And I think that to me was one of the most meaningful parts of it, because it really stood out. It really felt real. It really felt authentic. And I know there's so many people out there that would have related to that. Um, every single one of these teenagers is going through something. And even though we've said this about other shows before, it might not be the weight of the world realistically to somebody else, but to them, it's the weight of the world. And because they felt it, you felt it. This might be the most expert example I've ever seen of this done on television. It was just amazing.
Man, I feel like it's just impossible to praise Heartstopper enough. It's like it's going to go down in TV history as one of the best television shows that has ever been done. Not just for kids, just in general. Like it just truly is a masterpiece with a romance in the middle of it. Like I
Yeah.
just, as Nick and Charlie, and I know there are other relationships, but I mean, my goodness, those two.
Just so magical. The chemistry between Kit and Joe is
Hmm.
just like I can't not look at them and just like be like, like it breaks my heart how cute they are and how
Mhm.
much they like that love is. I we've watched a lot of romance. We've talked about a lot of romance on the show. I I'm struggling to think of a love that is as wholesome and pure
Mhm.
and just gorgeous as this as their love for each other. It is I can't like I don't have words for how adorable it is. Just like how much Nick cares about Charlie and how much Charlie likes he Charlie thinks that loving Nick is not putting his thoughts, feelings, issues onto Nick. And Nick is like, no, that's what love means is I want to take everything that you're carrying. I'm going to carry it too. And it's just like,
It's just beautiful. It makes me misty.
it's so beautiful. I don't know.
Like they're a model relationship.
Yeah.
Like they really are. And I'm so happy they exist. Because like regardless of your orientation, but most importantly for young men who love young men, it's a model for what your relationship should look like. It just is. Like there's just something about these two where I'm just like, look, if you need to see what love looks like or what a romance should look like or what your relationship should look like, I don't care what your gender identity is or what your orientation is. It's those two.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
what that's what it, that they are the example, they are the model, they are the template because it just
They're
really is.
the OTP of all OTPs. Is that what
Yes. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
acronym is?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's, they're so lovely. I'm struggling to find a more lovelier
Right?
pair.
I know.
Like I can't like the only other one, and just because the movie is coming out this evening and I just watched it last night, Red, White, Royal Blue, Alex and Henry is the other like pairing that I'm like, oh my God. It's just the way they love each other. I don't understand how it's real. But Nick and Charlie, I can't, I can't, I don't know.
No, I feel like
Magical.
magical. They're like the, they're like what people would want in, if they're looking for romance. Like if you wanted to find love in high school and expected to have that love go through high school into being life partnership, they would be it.
And I love that it's being modeled for the younger generation. I'm so thrilled that kids have this show because we didn't, right? We didn't
No.
have anything. Even like we obviously did not have models of queer love growing up
Hmm.
for our kind of for our demographic growing up. We just didn't have that. But even the models of love that we did have for younger people, it was so complicated in a different way. Like this is complicated in a realistic way that isn't fully like tragic. Like no one's, you know, being kidnapped. No one's being has
Mm-hmm.
a stalker. No one is being hit with a car before prom. Like there's no sex scandals. Like it's just so pure and the complications are such an easy way to enter into this world and to be like, oh yeah, we did go through that in a way. Maybe not the same way, but it's the way that it just taps into the human experience is I don't know how Alice did it.
Mm-mm, but they did. They like really did. I was trying to think when you were talking about our examples of love. Everything's so freaking dramatic. Like, and it
Even Lizzie and
is
Gordo like couldn't get it together.
like everything. Like it really is. I can't think of outside of, no, because even when I go over to
Because
anime with
even
Serena and
like
Darian, it's a lot.
yeah, I'm like, I love Ryan and Marissa. That is the tragicest romance of tragic romances you will ever see on television. And I'm like, Rory Gilmore didn't have a romance that was like this. Like, I can't,
Country Hill was a
not even
hot
on, not,
mess.
not even on a
Clark and Lana on
sitcom.
Smallville.
Yeah, I'm like,
Mess.
Even Clark and Lois, just
I'm sure there's one out there, but I doubt it would rival Nick and Charlie.
no, because
But
even if you were like Troy and Gabriella for High School Musical, those two drama too. Every episode, every movie. I said episode, it's movie.
and a lot of the big teen romances from our era haven't aged well. I feel like this is one that will, and because the idea love is a timeless thing, it's been in the movie since what, the 40s, the 30s, whatever. This kind of love, I think, is timeless. Not only is it's timely, it's necessary, it's long overdue, but just how endearing, enthusiastic, lovable it all really is. You can't put a price on that. You can't put a timeline on that. I feel like this is one that will age incredibly well, and I'm so glad that not just this generation, but that future generations will have that to grow up with. And I hope it lives on Netflix forever, where people can just click into it and watch it, because it's one of the most uplifting, joyous, and happy romances I've ever seen on TV. And that's not to say that there isn't trauma in there, but just the way it's all dealt with, the way it's all dramatized, the authenticity of it, and the absolutely endearing nature of it. It's beautiful.
I'm demanding 6 seasons in a movie.
I can get behind that.
I hope so. I feel like it's not going anywhere. It's hugely successful. Alice is doing things that Alice's work to me in this show very much feels like a byproduct of so many of the conversations that have been happening since, we were coming of age, like in the ways that the doors have opened, and they've diversified. And there's a great conversation about consent in this season. There's a great conversation about boundaries.
Yeah.
And what it means to apologize, and how apologizing doesn't fix things. You just said some words. Actions are really important, but also the person you're apologizing to doesn't doesn't mean you get to come back in their life. And just like, look at these like little niblets of like PSA that's not PSA. Like, we're not having
it's not whacking you over the head. It's very suddenly, like, it's just subtle reminders that apologies aren't a transaction. No is a complete sentence. Like, it's just like, that's what's at the bottom of all of these scenes. Like, oh my God, that scene between Charlie and Ben, I will be thinking about, because Joe just, we didn't talk about the cast, right? Because we need to praise them, and just like how, just like watching the interviews, like, I'm a teenager. Like, they're just like, so, like, I'm so happy that these days have this cast in particular, because they are just, they're screen into real life. It feels like they're just as genuine and special and great role models. Not to put that on them, because growing up, our idols had role model placed upon them, and that is unfair, but they are great role models, I feel like. And that role model does not equal perfection. I mean, just say that. Like, that's not what role model means. It's just modeling how you should conduct yourself and move through the world. That was another tangent. I'm sorry.
No, it's great.
But a good one.
It's a good one, because it is something that's true about them, and how they move through the world and how they want to be seen. I think it's also that changes and evolves over time too. And it just seems, and they're so open about being like, this is where I am now in my life, but I might want to do something different later. Or this is like, they just seem like, and it might just be because they're Gen Zs. I feel like Gen Zs are just so reflective. Like, for our generation as older millennials, well, younger millennials, where are we? Older millennials is like the 40s. Like, that's Beyonce. Yes, Beyonce is a millennial. I'm claiming her. She's right on the cusp. And then there's us in.
Are we like mid-millennial?
I think we're mid-millennial, because we were alive and kicking it before the internet became a thing.
The millennium, yeah.
Okay. And so then we we know all about the internet now. It's a bit different from the ones who just know nothing about the life before the internet.
Our generation is fascinating to me.
Right?
Because we were born at such a odd time. I feel like we're like, walk to remember, we're straddling two state borders. Like, we're like on two sides of different. It's a strange place to be as a
I
millennial.
know we're like at the just as globalization was beginning to open and the internet was popping. But in any case, the Gen Zs are just more reflective than previous generations, and they're it's easier for a lot of them to have more frank conversations and be honest about where they are in their life, which is not a millennial thing. Millennial thing is very much, can I get a guide for this? Can I get a book to understand how we're supposed to be handling this? So it is nice seeing the generation after us be able to be more open. Not to say that it's not scary. I don't think anyone in that generation is saying it's like, oh, it's so easy to just be able to walk out about in the world and talk about yourself. But they are doing it in a way that's comfortable for them, and that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now I feel old. That's okay. I like getting older.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mature. Let's use the word mature.
I'm mature. But
With
like,
age comes wisdom.
Yeah.
oh, for sure. And I think it's even shown in Heartstopper.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Very much
seeing
so.
the adults being there for these teens. And with the scene you were talking about, Reed, with Mr. Farouk, I'm sorry, I don't remember the art teacher's name, but when they're standing there and they're talking about
Mr.
it,
Ajay?
Yes,
Ajay?
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they ever said it in season 2.
Oh.
But I just rewatched season 1.
But like it is nice, like that was particularly about his experience and not having what Nick and Charlie have. But there's also the layer of being able to talk with another adult who just reminds you that like life keeps going. So whether you had that youthful abandon, just because you're in your, I'm gonna say 30s, doesn't mean you can't have youth, like experience that as an adult. It just would be a little different.
It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that it's been like a mantra for me for, let's say, almost 10 years. You're exactly where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's on a macro and a micro, like, and day to day, it helps me stay present, like wherever I am. Like if I'm, for instance, if I'm hanging out with my nephews who are very young and I feel pulled to do something else, like, oh, I have to do something for work, or oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm like, no, I'm here, I'm present, I'm exactly where I need to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. Nothing else should matter. But like on a bigger picture scale, that quote has helped me, like when I was unemployed and I'm like, no, I'm exactly where I need to be. Things will sort itself out. There's a reason why I'm in this position. And I think that even for Mr. Farouk, like in thinking about how everyone's timing, we're all on our own timing. One thing's not better than the other. His journey happened because it's how it needed to happen. Like, and I think that quote also helps me not regret things, because sure, you can look back and be like, oh, I wish I would have done that differently. But like, also no, because if you don't have your experiences, you wouldn't be who you are right now. So that's something I also, the way the show makes me think so deeply about things. Oh my God, I love it. Like it's,
Yeah.
again, it's so simple, but like the way that it can get you like just reflecting and thinking about the past, the present, the future. And it's such a gift.
There's a cleverness in the simple storytelling, and I think that's something that people really need to acknowledge, because
Less
it
can be
does
more.
really make yeah, exactly. It does make you think, and less can be more.
That's true. I will say though, watching it made me miss that age. Like it really did. Like with when Charlie and Nick and all their friends are together, and
Yeah.
to me, teenagers are essentially like puppies. Everything has to be done in a group. We're always laying on one another. We're always bouncing around like we had sugar, even if we didn't have any sugar. Like there's just, y'all, if you're a teenager listening to this, indulge that in your life. Like live in that, because when you get older, like that's not actually, the TV is lying to you. That's not happening with adults. Like it can happen, but everyone's usually so busy, or they've moved away, or
Yeah, you're
like you
not gonna
don't.
before work meet at Central Perk for an hour to talk with your friends over coffee. Like that's just,
No.
maybe it's reality for some people, but it's just, I know for me and a lot of people it's not. So when you're right, it does take me back to like getting off the bus at school in the morning and meeting up with friends before class, and in the halls during passing period and just being in that ecosystem, as much as you try to like push out of it and you're like, oh, because it's a grind. It's every day. You see the same people and it's like, oh my goodness, again. But like when you look back, you're like, that is such a important, pivotal, strange time to be in, that we're just like all together, just four walls of emotions and too much coursework.
Yes.
I'm standing with Charlie. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Let him. I was talking back to his mom for him, I will say.
Oh, she was doing a lot, but he didn't need to do his coursework.
He got it in 5 minutes to spare. He did it. Look at our boy go.
Like, I'm on her side, but I'm like, he deserves this.
Yeah.
He does. She was doing too much, though. I was like, ma'am, I feel like we can work in. Why don't we just bring the boy over to study with him? Like, I know in her mind, it'd be like, that's a reward. I'm like, but it might help him concentrate.
A little nick for a treat.
Yeah, you know, like get your essay done. He can come over for movie night. I'll make popcorn and set out the pretzels. How about that?
Something to work towards, yeah.
I know.
But I was with Charlie's dad, who was just like, what do I say? What that won't get me in trouble.
He was so cute going up to the step, being like, Charlie, do you want dinner? And like, I was like, no, sir, he doesn't want, he's mad right now. But his father's just like, I can't bring you your boyfriend, but I can bring you a meal.
It's not my fault I'm still here for you.
Also, unsung hero, Tori Spring.
Yes.
Yes.
She wants all the smoke and I support her.
Yes. What a legend.
Amazing. I watch out, David, Nick's brother. I'm surprised she didn't push him down those stairs. I'm just saying.
I would have. She's better than me. I mean, a lot of these interactions in the show have taught me that I talk a big game. I wouldn't, but they're nicer than me. Ben had another thing coming for me. He still does. I'll leave it at that.
Ben, also someone might be seen by him. Might be, and that's how they can unlearn behavior.
Yes, that could be an important. He's included in the journey. I hope nobody does, but if you do, really internalize that.
I know. Listen to Charlie and what Charlie has to say during the pivotal moment that him and Ben have a scene. Just saying.
Oh, such a good scene.
It is. I feel though, like if we don't wrap this up, we will be here for another 3 hours talking about
that might be our dream, but that's not our listeners' dream.
No, but if you haven't watched Heartstopper season 2, or you haven't watched Heartstopper, it really is good. If you're I know some people just don't like YA dramas. I get that. It's skewed too young for you, but give it a chance. It really is lovely. The episodes are like 30 minutes. Sometimes in the first season, it's a little less than that. It's a wonderful, happy journey. If you're sad, just put on Heartstopper.
If you're like in your 30s and you're like, I'm not watching this, like, do it for your inner teen that could probably use some healing and you don't even know. That stuff sneaks up on you. You're watching something and you're like, oh, didn't know 16-year-old me needed this, but here we are.
It's like that cozy cardigan you didn't know you needed. It just wraps you in such warmth.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I forgot you in the back of my closet. Let me pull you back out.
And it's like, that's how I should have handled that moment in my life. Okay.
Lessons to be learned from this little show everywhere.
It really is.